Yeah, sure. So what's special about Cabit is that we are creating the distributed cloud. So our vision is to make the next architectural leap in cloud storage, to go beyond the current model of corporate-owned data centers and create the first cloud storage service secure and scalable by design and sustainable on a global scale. But what does it mean in practical terms? So maybe you've seen this, but we're selling this small device that we launched with a Kickstarter campaign some time ago. It was actually unexpectedly successful. I think it went top 1% of Kickstarter history. Anyway, this small device is like an hexagonal shaped box we call the Cabit Cell, and it contains a small computer, a single board computer, and a hard drive, 1 terabyte or 2 terabyte hard drive. And the idea is that by plugging this Cabit Cell to the internet, to your home router, you connect it to all the other cells around the world and contribute the raw storage and connectivity resources we call the swarm of Cabit cells. And what do you get in return as a user? Get a half a terabyte or a terabyte of lifetime cloud storage service, like Dropbox or Google Drive, where you can store and share your data. And the key difference is that for the first time in the industry, you don't, as a user, you don't have to pay a lifetime recurrent fee to store and access your data. And on top of that, all files in Cabit, of course, are secure with end-to-end zero-knowledge encryption. That means that no one, not even the cloud provider, can access or use your data. So that's an overview of what Cabit is giving to the user.
Cool. So how is data stored in a normal cloud storage, and how is it stored with Qubit?
Right. So thank you really for this question, because I feel there is not so much awareness out there about what we call the cloud actually is. And I really appreciate every chance that I have to talk about it. So let's make it this way. Imagine you live in Toronto, Canada, and you want to send something you make, like a postal package, to your family that lives like in the countryside, half an hour drive away. Okay, what if I told you that you had to send this package, let's say to Florida, like 6,000 miles away, where it's dispatched and sent back to your family, right? You will tell me I'm completely out of my mind, I'm completely crazy. And unfortunately, this is exactly what happens in the internet today. So every time you store a file, quote unquote, on the cloud, what you're actually doing is renting some storage space on someone else's computer that has to run and stay online 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, waiting for your instructions. Like, give me my file back, or send this picture to my mom, or whatever you tell him. So the question is, who actually owns this computer, this server? And where is actually this computer physically located, right? And the answer can vary a bit depending on the cloud provider, but it really follows a clear pattern that every cloud provider, or we call traditional normal cloud storage, either they own or they rent a computer inside some huge data center, what they call also web farms. And this data center is usually located, thousands of miles away from the final users. Just to give you a real industry reference, for sure iCloud, right? And they have one data center in Europe, in Denmark, for the whole European continent, right? Amazon AWS, that is like the Titan leader in the industry, has two, one in Germany, one in Ireland. And all of this, of course, calls for another big, very important question, that is whether we, as users, would trust these guys with all of our digital life. And that's a personal choice, of course, but I think we rightfully hear more and more discussion about, public and political awareness on the topic lately. This is what we call the current centralized ownership model. We have a handful of Titan tech corporates that own a very small number of giant data centers where all our files and information are. And what happens with Cabit is that the service looks the same, like it's the user experience, just you store your data, you take your data back, right? That's what you do. But what changes is the architecture behind it. It's completely different. So what we do, we reverse the centralized paradigm, and we create the first data center-less cloud. No data center anymore. And the trick is that in Cabit, all users are providers and consumers at the same time. So what happens, just to give you, a practical handle of it, what happens when you upload a file on Cabit, but it doesn't go on some Amazon warehouse on the other side of the continent. Instead, what happens is that your computer, you encrypt it, you divide it into small pieces, and these pieces are, of course, encrypted. You process these pieces through a redundancy protocol. Let's say you have 10 pieces, they become 15 for this redundancy protocol. You send these 15 pieces to 15 Cabit cells in the swarm all around the world, right? And to do that, you open some peer-to-peer connections from your computer directly to these Cabit cells. So what happens when you want to download it, of course, is, it's the same idea. You just open these peer-to-peer connections to these 15 Cabit cells. You just need 10 out of 15, so the original size, to retrieve your file back. So the first 10 that you retrieve, you have enough data to recover your file. and with your own encryption key that you and only you know, that you can retrieve your file and open it and do whatever you want. So that's the overall idea. And in this way, we not only do not have access to the data because it's encrypted, but we don't even have possessions as a Scabit as the files physically because we don't own any data center.